And we are live. Amazing how this works with technology and everything. Welcome, everyone. I am with Michael, Make It Happen Quintas. And we were just kind of having a little conversation that we thought we would share with folks. And it's kind of revolving around a topic that's near and dear to me. And of course, that's about the fact that money doesn't spend itself, but we found something interesting. It sure is stressful when it tries. And so we were having a little bit of a conversation around that. And we decided, you know what, let's share with some folks and just kind of have some fun with it here. So welcome to a little bit of an impromptu, but I think we're going to do these a little bit more regular and have some fun with it and kind of just want to talk about some of that because I think right now a lot of folks are super stressed with craziness. I mean, it's fourth quarter, for heaven's sakes. How in the world did we get to fourth quarter? I'm not really sure. How about you? What do you think? I mean, has fourth quarter crept up on you and just kind of rolled over top of you?
Well, when I look at fourth quarter and being in the insurance business, I hear all the time about budgeting. My expertise is the bottom row of the American College Financial Pyramid, which talks about the essentials. And people are struggling to even meet the essentials, their insurances, their medical, even getting a will together and paying an organization to get a will, disability insurance. So I hear it all. It's not pleasant. There are good stories. There are ways, and I think you're going to help us with that today, ways to make sure that you have the resources that you need, not only to get by, but also to grow. And that's what I think is really important, a roadmap. And previewing the book, Money Doesn't Spend Itself, So Where Did It Go, was really interesting. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we go.
Absolutely. And I thank you because I'm so grateful and just so blessed to have had you kind of support me in that whole entire journey. This has been a wild 2020, with the book launch and everything. Of course, I'm going to have to just throw that out there because my little piggy's got to get out there. And this is Money Doesn't Spend Itself. And we are officially launching on Thursday. There's going to be a great special pricing for Kindle. So I really encourage, and just what you said, Michael, it is a tool. And that's what we're talking about, is there's so many resources and there's so many things out there. And I think what ends up happening is there's so much that you don't know where to go through. And that's where a lot of it, but it all starts with the foundation. And that's something that I'm a firm believer in, is you've got to get that foundation built. And as I've been out and kind of bouncing around, I kind of realized that sometimes your foundation's not quite as strong as you thought it was. And I think 2020 just absolutely brought that to light. Yeah. And it's been crazy. And it's like, okay, now what's going on? We've had to pivot, we've had to turn. But if those systems aren't in place, all of a sudden, we're going a little bit crazier than what we thought we were. And I think it magnified that a lot. And that's a lot of the reason behind the book, is to build that foundation. You've got to start somewhere. We've got to build a foundation so it supports the structure, especially when it comes to money and money management. And it doesn't have to be confusion. It can be simple. I didn't say easy. I just said simple.
Yes, agreed completely. What I liked about the book, and it was kind of funny, was that it talked about some of the ways that the wheels come off the wagon. It kind of creeps in and gets you. And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what it happens, whether it is an unruly teenager or whether it's, 5 or 6 issues in the business, that go belly up. And it's bad enough that I've heard 2020 compared to a bad tooth. The more you drill, the further you find things in there that aren't working out. But, I have done a lot of research on business development, started a few businesses, have been lucky, have had some that went better than others. And I do focus a lot on strategic planning with a military background and having been in real estate and being an executive in a company. You have to have a strategy. And so many times, like you said, Janet, they're so convoluted. There are so many steps. And I've heard it said that even a poor plan worked well is better than a great plan that you don't use. And so, with money, and if I can shorten the title for money, the money book, it's simple, it's fun, but what is important is the reflection pieces. So many times we have, a situation where, boy, I've got a shortage of cash, I've got a liquidity problem, and then there's panic that sets in, and we don't really talk about where we want to end up. The fight or flight kicks in, and all of a sudden we accomplish some things. Maybe we increase our liquidity by some, traditional or non-traditional methods, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves having not gotten closer to our goal. And so, when I read up and I thought about some of the things we've talked about and the specifics, the three major reasons that businesses are going to go under. The first thing is liquidity, not enough cash to meet the demands, whether it's payroll, whether it's expenses on a building, whether it's a need to promote marketing, or whether it's enough capital to hold together to finance a deal. Liquidity or lack of it can be the death knell or the beginning of the death knell of the business. The second thing, the solvency. So when we do get money, what do? We buy. We buy more advertising. Guilty. We buy more things, more office supplies, some more equipment. We get in and we step in further than we should, but we know, according to the rule of economics, that our solvency, it should be a 2-to-1. We should have enough liquid cash to overcome any needs to carry assets. And that's what it is. Your liquidity or your assets need to outweigh the liabilities, and solvency is the one that creeps in. Where if we notice liquidity, solvency creeps in. And of course, the last one is viability. We think we've arrived and the train's rolling along, and we don't realize that it takes a few pieces of coal every day to keep that engine running. So I guess my first interview question for you, because when we get together, it's either an interview, either I'm interviewing you or you're interviewing me.
And usually both, because we always are curious, because we're always trying to learn. And I think we have been so blessed that we've gotten to learn off of each other. And it's just been a lot of fun, which is why I think we thought this would be kind of fun to share with others too, and see if we can't get people to join us as well. So if you are listening with us, please, I can actually see the comments. Come talk with us. I'm still working a little bit on learning StreamYard myself, because I got to build a foundation, because we've had to pivot a little bit and change things a little bit. So, but yeah, if you are here, we have a couple people live. Say hi to us, because we want you guys to join in on us and have us join in our conversation as we're continuing going forward. So go for it, Michael. Hit me up with the question.
Your book, Money Doesn't Spend Itself, but so where did my money go? What plans do you have, if any, to move from liquidity? Because largely it is a book about liquidity, making sure that the money monster doesn't gobble up our money. Do you have any plans in the future to go to solvency, where your purchases, your investments, or your taking on of what could become liabilities to be outweighed by your liquid abilities, and then also viability, networking, growing business? What are your thoughts? Have you thought about that? And I'm just kind of picking your brain at this point.
Well, a lot of it is, and what I have found is all of these work together. And I think it's so easy to get kind of bumped off track really quickly, especially when things change, especially when life got busy. Life got completely turned upside down right now. And I'm finding that too many people were struggling. And as I said, when we're talking about this, with that strugglement comes back to one big thing is, if you want to be solvent, you want to have that viability, you want to be able to grow, there's one thing you've got to do. You've got to get back to basics. And if your basics aren't there, and that's where a lot of this is coming in from, we got to get back to our basics, which means we got to be tracking. We don't know if we're solvent. We don't know if we're profitable. We don't know of anything unless we're looking at our financials. Well, you can look at financials, but if there's no numbers on there, that's a problem. But if you're not tracking, you can't put numbers on it. So like this is vicious cycle that has happened. And I think that 2020 really has magnified that. It has truly magnified that maybe we weren't quite as consistent, keyword. Maybe we're okay, but consistency is a huge thing. And, sometimes we're going to stumble. Sometimes we're going to fall over. Sometimes we're going to roll backward. I know writing this book, that has definitely been, there was days I was running full speed ahead and I tumbled for the next 10 days.
Right.
Because it's life.
Right.
And we're all experiencing that right now. And by getting back to the basics, by putting that back into place, we can start to build those goals. We need to know what a break even is. If we don't know, and what is a break even? A break even means that what is the bare minimum I need to do to meet my bills for the month?
Right.
And be able to survive. That's not grow, that's survive.
Right.
And then we've got to figure out where some of those expenses are, because maybe there's some holes out there. Maybe there's some holes we need to be plugging up. Right. Maybe there's some holes we didn't even know were even out there. And that I have found has been kind of interesting as I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. Auto pay is fabulous and it's simple and it's so easy. The only problem is you canceled the service last year and you're still paying for it.
Right.
So things like that, I think, have really been interesting over, as we've been so I guess that's so what is the plan? My first and foremost step for everyone is get back to your basics. Make sure
Right.
you get your systems in place. And that's what I love to do, is I love to help figure out what those pieces are and get that system more streamlined. So
Right.
that when you're talking with your account, and if you're an entrepreneur, yeah, it's mainly you, which doesn't mean you don't have support from others. And maybe
Right.
that's the support of a bookkeeper, and maybe that's the support of an accountant. And I've have found it's kind of interesting that a lot of times the business owner struggles to communicate with the accountant and bookkeeper. And
Right.
that's where spending 20 years in corporate America, that background, and being a small business owner myself, I'm also a Mary Kay consultant, where I can bring those together, and I usually can speak both languages. So it's been
Right.
fun is to get those systems in place. So that's kind of the
Right.
plan. Let's get a system in place. And anybody that's talked to me before knows I have one rule about a system, because I always get asked, what's the best system for me? And my answer is always the same. And I'll bet you could answer, because you've heard me say it more than once. But what is the best system? The best
Right.
system is simply the one you're going to use.
Right.
And that's where
Right.
it was. So I think that may have rounded out some of that question. It's kind of
Well,
going from there.
and as you were sharing with us, I remember, everybody has dreams,
Yes,
or most people have dreams. Most people I've ever talked to had dreams, but I've heard it said, and I do believe it, that a dream only becomes a vision when it's written down. And when we use terms like, well, what are your goals this year? Well, I want to increase my business. That's not really a goal. We need to put a number on it, and then we
yes,
have to get a method or a plan to get there, a roadmap. And I'm not sure exactly how far you'll go with money or other books that you'll write, but I do know that there is a big need for workshops, for seminars that are very simple, where you get 10 or 12 people in a room, and it's not so much as crunching the numbers then and there, but getting to the deeper issues. What is it that drives me? What do I want my business to be? How do I go congruent with my vision and my method to make sure that I stay on course? And having been a tactician, to do many military operations and meet deadlines and goals, and in business, I have had to over and over again not convince people to do more, but to be simple and precise and to boil it down. Don't we always start with a thesis statement before we write a masterpiece?
we
Then
do.
why do we
Absolutely.
write pages and pages and pages, and then we try to fit it into what we're doing? Being a
Yeah.
musician, you need a hook. When I write a song, it's usually I'll be sitting there at some place convenient or not so convenient, and all of a sudden a hook or a phrase will come over and over and over, and I'll pull out my phone and put it on notes, and maybe it'll sit there for a little bit, maybe it'll boil a little bit, maybe it'll shift a little, but then you build around that one theme, around that vision, around that thesis statement. And so,
Mhm.
not saying you can't adjust, but one of the things I loved about the book was the reflection pieces that are actually coupled with, okay, you thought about it, you gave your answers, now get up and do something. So what are your plans to do that type of thing, to sit down with a group of 10 or 15 or 20 people?
I am just looking forward, because I want to get involved with a lot more workshops and seminars and be able to have that intimate relationship that we are starting to look. But bottom line is reflect. And that was one of the key things with the book is, yes, I want you to be thinking about it. Yes, they're hard answers. And yes, you don't really want to think about them. The only
Right.
problem is we have to. And so I'm going to be launching, especially in 2021, and we may have a small mini one here just towards the end of or beginning of December here, where we just
Right.
do a mini workshop where we take a look at a couple of the key reflection questions that are shared in the book and really start getting that to think, so that we can kick 2021 off on the right
Right.
foot.
Right.
And keeping it to a smaller number, so it's going to be limited in numbers, where we're going to sit down, we're going to reflect, we're going to get that, and then we're going to get up and do it.
Right.
And part of
Right.
that absolutely is the numbers, but part of that, as you eloquent put, it's the dream and making sure, because if we don't know where our dream's going and we don't have a vision in front of that, what
Right.
direction are we going? And I love to give the analogy. You have this business and you're full steam ahead and you're throwing darts at your dartboard, and that's fabulous.
Yeah.
If you don't have a plan in place,
Yeah.
what's to say that the dartboard's not behind you? What's
Do you
to say
remember
that
that
it's not
cartoon? Do you
And Barry's
remember
gonna come say hi too, because somebody just shot like a gun, and he's like, "I'm not happy with this."
I wish I had my dog Bogey with me.
Oh,
They,
yes,
they
they were gonna have fun. We
our
got to get
dogs
these
would
guys
be more
together.
popular than us, Janet. They
They
would be
would.
more
We'll
popular
just
than
put them on. We'll be good.
us. Do you remember the old cartoon from Peanuts in the newspaper? And I'm showing my age, where Charlie Brown shoots an arrow in a fence and then draws an arrow around it.
Exactly.
We're doing that every day, and a lot of times we do that because we try to reduce stress. Can we talk about stress and money for just a minute? Could I share a few things?
Absolutely.
So, as you know, my personality, you will either interview me or I will interview you. And I've done a lot of interviews about stressors, especially with money. Just a couple of them quickly. Young mother, stay at home, 2 children. The family makes plenty of money. And this woman is terrified to spend a penny, terrified to spend any money because she doesn't want to be poor. And I think a lot of that stress could be alleviated by having that plan with, or if you're married or you have a life partner or a business partner, sharing that plan, revisiting that plan, reaffirming the positive, looking for trouble spots and making sure that we reduce the stress. Isn't it the fear of unknown that sometimes drives us to a panic mode? And we don't want to live that way. And you certainly can't run a business that way. The other person that I interviewed that was very, very significant, a business professional, early 30s, had a newborn, was married, had plenty of money coming in, but was concerned about job performance, even though getting stellar reviews and being at the top of the pack, because it might all go away. Well, it might all go away. It could all end in a day. The business could go under. There could be a termination. The job could end. So the preparation for a safety net, the preparation for what if. You know, I'm an insurance agent. Although I can sell most any type of insurance, I have a passion. It's for life insurance. I do also do home and auto. I sell what if insurance. What if? It's not really life insurance, it's if insurance. And so when we do our financing, I did a little acronym, if I could share it with you before I toss back to you. It's based on the word stress. And the first letter, of course, is S. See the project from start to finish. What do you want your finances to look like? My dad did this with me when I was about 13 years old. At that point, I thought, wow, I'm going to be poor the rest of my life. And fortunately, and my dad, who God rest his soul, used to say, it's not what you make, son, it's what you spend. That's what money doesn't spend itself is all about. It's not what you make, it's what you spend. The second thing for stress is T, timelines. Timelines, not someday. Which day? Which day are we going to do it? R, reread and revise and review your program. And you cover this excellent in your book. I like the way you go back and you snowplow in the previous points and you're like, okay, we moved on, but we really didn't leave it. It's just something we're building on. The E is expect setbacks. Might have a broken leg. One of the kids might get hurt. They might need braces. The gutters might fall off the house. As a matter of fact, in my business, I see it every day. So you're going to have setbacks. So expect setbacks. S is shape the plan entirely. Once you shape the plan entirely, you can go ahead and morph that plan to meet the cash flow that's coming in so you don't overstep your liabilities and end up with insolvency. And the last S is solidify the project. Or if it's a plan, make sure it's solid, make sure it's in place, and that it won't be disturbed until you decide to move that money and do some type of an exchange with your finances or make a purchase or make a move. Some of the people I talked to about finances, Janet, were petrified and they were frozen. And I believe that if they start with a simple, easy to read, leafing through the pages, reflecting about what you've written, and then getting down to business with the numbers. You won't get away without the numbers. It's like, death and taxes. We're all going to do with the numbers. But let's make sure that when both of those happen, we're ready. So back to you, Janet.
And I could not have summed it up any better. And that's exactly what we've got to do is we've got to get that stress under control. And there's a simple solution. A lot of it revolves around that plan. And I love to say that the plan is pretty much one of those pillars of the foundation.
Yeah.
And I always love to say, okay, what is an example of a plan? Well, what about a budget? Because I love to spell budget as a 4-letter word. And once we start talking, and I always like to throw that out there, budget's just a 4-letter word, and people think I'm crazy. The budget's very simple. It's just the plan
Right.
of telling your money where to go instead of wondering. Because Dave Ramsey puts it, tell your money where to go instead of wonder where it went.
Right.
And
Right.
that is where a lot of folks get so tripped up, I think. And that's where we've got to take that step back. And that's why it is so stressful. What would have happened in 2020, especially that prime example, if you would have had that recommended 3 to 6 months of expenses tucked away so that when chaos hit, you weren't worried about trying to cover at least that month's bills. You
Yeah.
already had it put back. So when those setbacks came, when that, good gravy, let's face facts, Murphy and Mayhem, they come in as a tag team effort to us. I keep thinking one gets kicked out the back door, they come back in the, the front door. It's like, okay, wait.
Oh, they're coming back.
They're coming back. They move in and they sneak in. They're very quiet about it
Yes.
until all heck breaks loose, and then you realize they're there.
Yes.
And I think, what could a plan, what could have a budget, if knowing your numbers and having that plan in place and being those financial, that you know what you're up against,
Right.
where your reserves are at, you have that liquidity, you have those assets, and that above where your liabilities are, because you're monitoring it, and not just monitoring it, you're studying it to
Right.
know. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming, and that may not be your strength, and that's okay. And that's what I really want to encourage folks. And join me with these workshops. Join me as we're going through, as we do these small groups, where we're going to take a look and we're going to reflect on what direction do we need to go. What are those goals? What are those financial pieces that we are trying to target, that we are throwing our darts towards? But it still comes back to those numbers. And how do we get the systems in place? And they don't have to be so complicated. And that's what I just love to do, especially with my private coaching ones, where we actually get into their system.
Right.
And we find a way to get their system to be more streamlined. I always love to say, I have an accounting background, and and I'll play in the square box. The only problem is my corners aren't square.
Yeah.
My box is there, but my
Yeah.
corners aren't square. And it's because we've got to adapt, and we've got to, just find what's going to work that they're going to use. And that's what we're going to focus on. And that's where I'm going to really focus 2021. In the meantime, I really would love to encourage folks to take advantage of the book that's coming out. There is a very special price on Thursday, so I'm excited about that. And you guys are going to see this lovely little pig, and I'm going to hide you, Michael, there for a minute, because there's my little guy, and we're in the process of naming him.
love him.
I'll announce his name. But a lot of it is just taking those tools that are available, finding a system that's going to work for you, that you are going to use. And that's what I think we're both encouraging. Let's get this stuff in place.
Yeah.
Let's find ways to do that and move forward, but move forward in a confident manner, because you know where your foundation's at, and it's going to support you.
Right. Hey, will that book fit in a stocking for Christmas?
It absolutely will.
That's
These
what I
big
thought.
round, they're paperback, so we can tuck them in.
There it is. There it is.
Absolutely.
You can put some pens in there and some paper in that book.
There
it
we
might be
go.
the best gift you ever give them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to kind of sharing these going forward, because, it's just really amazing. And I just so blessed to be able to have such great friends, and for you being willing to come read. And you actually had to remind me that I like to talk, and my sentences are a little bit longer. And I appreciated that, because, when we're comfortable in what we're comfortable about talking about, sometimes I can rattle this off and people glaze over. So it was a great reminder. And I try very hard not to do that, but I think we all do that.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to being involved in it that sometimes we don't take that step back. And this book for me was that step back.
Awesome.
And say, okay, where was that foundation? How can we do this? And what little bites can we do? And a little, tidbits there. So I do encourage folks, if anyone's interested, jump out over. You can even get some more information, janetickes.com. It will be actually there. So I will, if you just drop there, when you get in, you're going to see the book, and the link will be right there as well. But I do encourage folks, take advantage of the tools that are around you. Take advantage if you've got life insurance needs, especially, Michael just hit it on the head. You absolutely have a passion, and you make sure that folks are educated before they make that decision. And I think
That's
that's
right.
where you and I are always such, that we have just meshed, because we want them to make the educated decision.
Yeah.
So all we're going to do is provide the information. What you do with it is up to you.
Yeah.
But we want to
Excellent.
encourage you and guide you, and that's what our passion is. So we do just encourage that, and hopefully you'll join us again as we come in here and maybe jump in occasionally. Maybe we
Yeah.
can make this a weekly habit for the next couple of weeks, just to kind of get an opportunity out there and share with some folks. So
Sure. And thank you for having me. This was
thank
very,
you.
very nice. It was very exciting.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it, because it's always good to kind of bounce some ideas off of one
That's right. That's right.
Even if we didn't get into fisticuffs this time, we're okay.
That's right. We're good. No low blows,
Maybe
no
next time.
elbows.
We don't guarantee anything.
That's right.
But thank you, everyone that decided to join us, and we do encourage you, stop by again and just kind of have an opportunity and have a conversation with us. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Take care.